Hi, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning, and today we are going to be taking a deep dive into a sight word fluency packet. It's a system that I've used in the classroom that helps you stay organized while also targeting what your students need. So I've been creating a series of videos all about differentiation. In each video, we're taking a deep dive into a product. So we open it up, talk about it, and keep a track of all the different ways you can use it, focusing in on differentiation. My idea is that I want to take one activity and see how many different ways I can use it. That helps cut down on the time you're spending on prepping and looking for the just right activity. So, my background is special education. I spent about half my time in the inclusion classroom setting and then about half my time pulling groups over to the resource room. Now I'm an instructional coach supporting special educators doing the exact same thing. I also work with gen ed teachers who may be new to the co teaching role and model. The main area of concern that I usually hear about is meeting all your students' needs. It's like you can have as many needs in your classroom as you have students. And what are you supposed to do to meet all that differentiation? There's kind of a myth that I hear quite a bit as a coach, and I didn't really know this existed until I got to this position, that differentiation has to be different. And I think, like, no, it doesn't have to be different at all. You don't need different activities to meet all your students' needs. You can use the same activity and make the adjustments, whether the way you present it, the way you pace it, the way you student responds, and you can make those adjustments. In fact, I think that's even better than getting different activities because we want our students to be on the general education curriculum. I think that's every goal of a special educator is we want them to get as close as possible in the least restrictive manner. And so it would be, to me, really beneficial to keep that same activity that everyone's doing and make the differentiation whenever possible in that activity. So it's kind of my thing. And that's why I'm making these videos. So whether you teach sight words or not, I still think this would be really helpful to take notes because I'll just be showing how I can look at this product in so many different angles and share what I've done with success. I find that I use many of the resources from one year to the next, but I use them in different ways because I've never had a student exactly like another student yet. Okay, so we're taking a look today at the sight words fluency packet. It's really like an organizational kit for sight words. So whether you're a special educator or a general educator, if your school or grade level or IEP goals and objectives are focused on sight words, this is going to be helpful for you. It's also something that I know families are very familiar with and often um, are asking for resources to help with sight words. So this packet I also chose because it is part of the Word Work Club. The Word Work Club is, you can find out more information on my Positively Learning blog, but what the idea is that it is a set of 9 forever resources. I call them forever resources because you get instant access and they stay there. You're always going to have them. And those resources are very similar to what we're going to be talking about today. One activity or one resource that you can use for many different activities. And then as part of the club, you also get monthly activities, and those switch out every month. They might be a little more targeted on one skill, but they correspond nicely with the forever activities. I kind of wrap it up every month by giving you a cheat sheet on like where to find what you need and how to use it. So this is part of that word work club, or you can just use this on your own. So I opened it up and let me show you what it looks like inside. I created this very, very early in my career. I was pushing in, which is the inclusion classroom model. I was pushing into several classrooms, and there was one classroom I was barely in. It was like half an hour of services every other day or like 2 days a week. And so this general educator and I would meet frequently on how we can support all the students, even if I was not there. One thing she really valued for her students was growing their independence, all her students. So she created book bags and different types of resources that they could keep in their seat sack. So whenever it was like time, they could just go in their seat sack and grab what they need. It was kind of like customized, like they had the level that they needed. I know she used a lot of like reading A to Z books and things like that. She asked me for some resources. And so we created these resource binders, and these sight word fluency sheets we're going to be taking a look at were part of what my students were working on and what I included in the binder. I've gone through some revisions since then, but that was something that my students were able to access independently, if that was like what their goal was and what level they were working with. So that's how they started. So let me show you what the fluency pages look like. The first page of the packet serves as a table of contents and gives some background information. The next shows like some of the materials included, and then we get to the one-page organization. We have 5 words per page, and this is the fluency page. This is the page that you would show your student, or I would put in their resource binder. There's 5 words, and we're following the Fry word list, which is the first 100 words. There's a lot of overlap with Dolch or with other word lists from like maybe a curriculum your school is using. But there's 5 focus words. It's intended to be used for 1 week. However, you could use them like quicker or like slow it down if you wanted to keep it for a longer period of time. Completely up to you. But you see those 5 words repeated up to 5 times each, because there's a total of 25 words. There's an arrow that kind of supports that whole like reading left to right fluently. So a couple of things that I added to this page that I think made them a little more useful for my students. Notice how the word is just a little bit higher on the box and there's some space underneath. This was intentional for my students who were tracking left to right, which many of my students in first grade were still doing. So they were tracking, and so not funny, but it happens where I'm like, good readers track and so on. And my students were tracking like over the word. So they could not read the word. So there they are, like trying to do what I've asked them to do. And then I'm like noticing that they can't even see the word. Like, how helpful is that, right? So I made these boards like this so that they could track as they go across from left to right. Now, these are the fluency pages intended for students to use. And there's the format, offers, the tracking. And by tracking, I mean like finger tracking, visual tracking. Now, there's also opportunities for data tracking. So that same space right underneath there, what I might do is I might print out these 20 pages and keep them in a binder, like whether it's a student folder or whatever data tracking system I'm using. And that room that's underneath each word leaves me an opportunity to like make notes, like whether it's a miscue or like maybe they're like swapping out the and to each time they see it, or to and of each time they see it. That space is there for me to make some notes. Sometimes I just even make notes of like the ones they are reading if I'm listening in, and so I can just know that they've got that. And like the ones that they don't read correctly with accuracy, then I can make a note. So these are also being used for data tracking. Now, notice that there's the spaces for the days up above and lots of room to write in as well. This space is more for students to track themselves. It does say like you can time yourself. Can you beat your time? I did not put a lot of emphasis on time, but I know my students, whether it was like a quick time or a slow time, the main idea was like, could they beat their time? They were really engaged. I used it as engagement, not necessarily like mastering how fast you can read something. That was not how I rolled. But if it's an engagement tool, absolutely. So that's something that can go right in here. You can also be tracking other things there. So you could be tracking timing completely at your discretion. You could use that room for accuracy, whether like you're listening to them read on day 2 and they're reading and like those 5 words are getting 4 out of 5 or something. The other thing you can use it for is just a completion. Like that can be almost like a completion. That could almost be like a reading log, like check. Okay, I read it day 3, day 4, day 5, and so on. So that is up to you. But as I scroll down, you're going to see there's 20 pages and they're all organized with the next 5 words in that list, which is great. Keeps them all together. After those lists, then we move into flashcards. I tried to make these as low prep as possible. And the idea is that I would just print out this page and make copies for whoever's at group 1 and just put it in my students' take-home folders, and they could take them home and like cut them up if they wanted to paste them to index cards to make them a little more sturdy or so on. So I tried to make them as low prep as possible for teachers, but also for students. So there is a set of flashcards for students, take home, or of course, you have a set for yourself as well. Whether you're focusing in 5 at a time and every week you're adding 5 so you have 100 flashcards, or whether you're just focusing on the 5. I did get really fancy and I color coordinated mine. I would print, and you can see a little bit of it here. I would print them on colored paper and then print the flashcard on colored paper, match, and so on. So like pink was group 1, yellow was group 2, and so on. You don't need to be that extra. I just found it as an organization tool. I could just grab what I need really quickly. Okay, so of course, now we have flashcards for the students, for at home, for the teacher. They're really easy to print. They're on one page, fast. Then, of course, we can use them as traditional flashcards, but we also can do flashcard games. Whether this is memory, whether this is Go Fish, red light, green light, around the world, whatever you want it to be. There's tons of games. And that's using like those 5 cards printed a couple of times each so that you have multiples, or adding each week so that you have more cards that way. The next thing we do, and this I would say I did this like once a week, every week. Flashcard sort. So say we are on say we have 100 cards. Say we've done all 20 weeks. This is later in the school year and we have 100 cards. And we know that some of them are like incredibly easy for our students. They have demonstrated mastery. Some are words we want to keep working on a little bit longer. I love to sort them, and we sort them quickly without hesitation, and we put them into 2 piles as so easy for us. We are rock stars, or whoa, we need a little bit more practice. And like if there's even slight hesitation, I will dramatically put it in the we're going to keep these cards. And my students giggle and they think it's fun. It's not like they get upset. I do refer to it as we do a quick flash and we sort by easy peasy lemon squeezy and holy moly guacamole. And yes, we did that. It wasn't like these are the ones you're good at, these are the ones you are not good at. But we didn't do that. So my students thought this was hilarious. If it was in the holy moly guacamole, we often did like where it's like, which pile's bigger? Whoa, 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 the lemon pile's growing, and the guacamole is getting smaller. Who's eating the guacamole? It was just fun. And it also like really helped me make priority like on what to focus on. So the holy moly guacamoles may end up in a pocket chart. We'll use a pointer, we'll do them as a quick warm-up rather than do all 100 cards. We might be focusing on the 12 that we need to focus on. The pointer is always fun because that could be like turned into a center where a student is pointing and reading to a small group and they're taking turns, whatever works for you. The next thing, of course, you have flashcards. They're a good size. They're low prep. You can use them for a word wall if you want. In my classroom, we had a sound wall, which was phonics sound spellings with a really strong real photo visual that my students loved. And then we also had a word wall. And so we had both. And the word wall was like a reference for like when we need our sight words. They knew that those were on there. And then the sound wall was more of like the decoding when we were doing that. So that worked out really well. Number 9 is, I'm going to go back to the packet and scroll through the flashcards. And as I get towards the end, you're going to see, even though we had multiple opportunities for progress monitoring as we went, there is a page at the end of the packet that is all in one. And this is not the student page. This is definitely for you to use. It is one student per page. And you can see the date of the assessment. There's 8 places to write in the date. So if you want to use this page multiple times and go back, you can show the progress that way, maybe use a different color pen or marker or so on, the results, and then the next steps. Notice how the spacing of the word leaves some space after it, especially if like they're miscuing and like there's a word like they're getting not miscue, but if they're mixing up words, you can definitely make note of that to do some extra practice. So there's a data tracking. This is still informal, but maybe a little bit more formal than what we were seeing earlier on the individual student pages. So data tracking, this is all in one. That's available for you. Tracking, that can be a really great, helpful way to also like keep track of which students on which groups if you have students on multiple groups, which is, I think, a great idea. That's why I talked about that color coding. If you had all students on group 2, all students move to group 3 and so on, that seems like what I see a lot in a gen ed classroom, and I just haven't seen it be super successful for all students. Maybe 60% are keeping up at that pace, and some need faster and some need slower, more repetition. And then the last thing is something that we did not really speak about was the fluency aspect. You can take this packet and use it in 2 different ways. We talked about the fluency as part of the resource binder, working on these words independently, but then I kind of also talked about how we would tackle 5 words a week and work on them like as if those were the new sight words, which is more like instructional. You can use them whichever way is appropriate for your students. If you're working with younger students who are new to sight words, might be more the instructional. If you're working with like second graders who have seen these words before and they just need to like keep them fluent, then that would be something you'd be working at more of a independent level. So these could just turn into fluency exercises. Put them in sheet protectors. I've made centers where I take the pages, print them on like colored paper, and then laminate them, put them in a bin with one of those egg timers or sand timers, and that becomes a fluency center. Maybe I'll put some fun little finger trackers in that one if they can handle it. So there are the 10 different ways that you can use some of the resources that are included in this Fry Sightwords Fluency Packet. I'm so curious to hear what you think. Were these all things that you already are doing? Are some of them new to you? Which one are you going to try out tomorrow or this week or next week? Or are there more activities that we can add? We have 10, but maybe we can add even more to this list. So I'd love to hear from you and see what you think. I invite you to check out this Fry Sight Word Packet. It also comes in a bundle with some other multisensory sight word materials that support students in the classroom and in small groups. And I will also link up the word work club so you can see how the sight words, phonics, the word work all works together. All right, thank you so much.